Hi YouTube, it's Kathy, and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for March 19th through 25th. This week I read 2 books, I watched 1 movie, I watched 1 TV show, I listened to 1 podcast, and I finished listening to 1 book. I know it feels like my media intake decreased this week, and that's due to working a 7-day stretch in a row, as well as attending this event on Saturday.
Yeah, looking cute. You get like a good one.
Yeah, exactly, like all of the poses. First this week I finished 13 Reasons Why by Jay Asher. I can't remember exactly how I came across this book, but I feel like it must have been on a list of books that are being turned into TV shows or movies that I found at work. And since I like reading the source material before watching it, I picked it up. I later found out that Kate Walsh is in the adaptation, and since I've been loving her on Private Practice recently and on Grey's Anatomy before that, all the better. This book follows Clay, who receives a package in the mail from a schoolmate crush who happened to have committed suicide 2 weeks previously. Inside the package are 7 cassette tapes and instructions for him to listen to them because each side of the tapes makes up a story as to why she committed suicide. He then has to pass them on to the next person in the chain. I finished this book in a day not only because it's fairly short, but also because I really wanted to know what happened. The weaving of Hannah and Clay's stories is artfully done, and I'm really excited to see how that translates to TV. The Netflix series comes out on March 31st. This week I also read The Boggart by Susan Cooper. My friend Kirsty mentioned loving this book during the time that she was growing up in Canada, and because I had never heard of it, I decided to pick it up. Yes, it is a kid's book, fight me. I was busy this week. This book follows Emily and Jessup, children of a Toronto family who find out that a distant relative has died and left them a castle in Scotland. Side note, if I don't think about this too hard, this is my personal dream, but then I think about council tax. The family visits the castle before putting it on the market and accidentally picks up the Boggart, which is a spirit who likes to play tricks. Boggart travels back to Canada in a writing desk, and havoc ensues. Kirsty correctly pointed out that the computer element of this story is laughable. This book was published in 1993, and not only is the lingo outdated, I feel like the author just made some of it up. I did, however, relate to the family traveling in the UK and having people referring to them as American, and them constantly reminding them that they're Canadian. I once took a cab while I was living in Dublin, and the driver asked me what part of America I was from, and I said, "I'm from Canada, but all you English sound the same," and he was enraged for about 2 seconds before he realized the parallel I had drawn and went, fair play. This week in Private Practice I went from Season 1, Episode 5 to Season 2, Episode 12, which seems like a lot until you realize that there are only 9 episodes in Season 1. I realized that a few people that pop up in other Shondaland shows show up as patients, which is great. However, Sarah Drew, the actress that plays April Kepner, showed up, and because Grey's Anatomy is the same universe as Private Practice, this really confused me. I had to wait for confirmation that she was playing somebody else. I can only assume that she played this character before playing April in Grey's Anatomy, and it's kind of my fault for watching the shows out of order. And to be fair, it's not really that big of an issue. Moon Zappa also played different characters on both of these shows. This week I also watched Rogue One at the IMAX, and my takeaway was meh. The Force Awakens was so freaking good in comparison, and yeah, it's nice to have this backstory, but I didn't feel as intrigued by this movie. Also, there didn't seem to be a consensus on how to say the main character's name, so I still have no idea what it was. Jin? Jen? Jem? Upon looking it up, it was Jin. J-Y-N. Pretty name, but get everyone to say it the same way. This week I listened to Dear Hank and John, and since I've switched over to listening to books instead of podcasts during my commute, I have fallen behind. This podcast gives dubious advice and updates from Mars and AFC Wimbledon, which is why I know way too much about third-tier English football. Go sports ball! This week I listened to The Gods of Gotham by Lindsay Fay. You may remember that I read one of her other books, Jane Steele, earlier this year, and I loved it, so I figured I would give another one of her books a go. I am really glad I did, and I am also really glad that it is the first in a trilogy. This book takes place in New York in the 1840s, right as the city has formed its first official police force. Timothy Wilde, our barman turned Copper Star protagonist, is quick-witted, good-natured, and when he gets things wrong, he tries to learn from it. I found the vernacular in this book has been creeping into my head in the past wee while. The voice actor for this book, Stephen Boyer, is tremendous. There's several different characters in this book that he's breathed life into by giving them their own distinct voices, but I am most impressed by his ability to do an Irish accent. There's a great amount of immigration of Irish people to America in the 1840s, so there are many Irish characters, and as someone who suffered through listening to David Boreanaz try to do an Irish accent in the flashbacks in Buffy while I was living in Ireland, thank you so much for not sucking, Stephen Boyer. That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down in the comments section, be sure to hit that subscribe button. You can also like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you next time. Bye!